Hello and welcome to my presentation. Today's main focus will be the knee joint and muscles involved in deadlifting. In this presentation, we will have an overview of the quadriceps and hamstrings in deadlift performance. To start off, we will go over the knee joint anatomy and function. As you can see on the right hand side, we have a picture of the main joints and one of the muscle groups involved in this skill. The main joints are going to be the tibiofemoral joint and patellofemoral joint, which are your knee joints, and they are considered to be hinge joints. As far as bone goes, we have the femur, tibia, and patella. Now, in a deadlift, many joints, bones, and muscles are involved, but our main focus for today and the main ones involved are going to be the femur, tibia, and patella. The femur being your big long bone in your legs, the tibia right above it, and then your patella. As far as the function, they provide stability, enables movement, and absorbs shocks. Absorbing shock is a really important one because usually in a deadlift, heavy weight is involved, and with heavy weight, you want your joints and muscles to be absorbing the shock, because otherwise you're putting excessive strain on your muscles. You could face muscle tears and excessive strain on your lower back, which causes injury. Now, you might be asking yourself, what is a deadlift and why is it so effective? Deadlifts are one of the most effective compound exercises out there because it involves and targets multiple muscle groups. Things like your hamstrings, your core, your posterior chain, and numerous other muscle groups. It targets them all at once, so therefore the exercise is super effective, saves time, and really efficient. It involves usually lifting a weighted barbell from the ground level. Now, as far as weight goes, that is completely dependent on the person. Some people may be only able to lift the barbell. Some people may be able to lift some insane weights, and that is totally okay. Everyone starts at different levels. You just have to be starting at a level that you're comfortable with. As far as technique and form, you must start on the ground, chins close to the bar, with your knees slightly bent forward. Your back must be straight with a 30 to 45 degrees bent, a small forward tilt, and then your chest up. And then as you go to lift the barbell up, you must almost flex your core slightly just to prevent excessive strain on your lower back, which could cause injury. Now, an important tip that I would give is when you're lifting, only lift with your legs. Almost think of it as you're pushing the ground down and you're lifting the barbell straight up. Because if you're lifting with your back, you could have herniated discs or you could strain your lower back. And as we all know, lower back pain is not fun. Now, what is the role of the knee joint in this skill? When you are lifting the barbell up, your knee joint extends, and then that helps stabilize the body when you're descending and lowering the weight down. Right here, we have a video on how to perform a deadlift the correct way.
If everybody had a perfect deadlift, don't you think? You're about to see the best set of steps for that perfect deadlift you've ever seen. Step 1. Approach the bar so that your shins are 1 inch away from the barbell, putting it directly over the middle of your foot. Step 2. Without bending your shins to the barbell, grab the barbell just on the outside of your shins. Do not move the barbell. Step 3. Push your knees forward until your shins meet the barbell, dropping your hips down into position. Step 4. Push your chest through and pull your shoulders down towards your hips. Step 5. Push your knees out into your forearms and drag the barbell directly up your legs, keeping it in contact all the way until you're standing straight up and down. Then push your hips back and lower the bar down to the floor, keeping it in contact with your legs the entire time. And that, my friends, is how you do a perfect deadlift. I'm gonna keep the content coming. Follow.
Now, in that video, we saw a famous Canadian weightlifting coach, and I found his videos very helpful in case anyone wants to check him out on YouTube. Moving on, we have the knee joint and the key muscles in a deadlift. We did talk about some of the knee joints earlier, but in this slide, we're going to be focusing on the key movements, the primary muscles involved, and their action. So when we are going through the knee extension, when we're lifting the barbell up, the knee extends to pull the barbell up, and then when bringing the barbell back to the ground, we have a knee flexion. The primary muscles involved, as I said earlier, many muscles will be involved when performing a deadlift, but your main two ones that we'll be focusing on for this presentation is your quadriceps. Now, the quadriceps are considered the agonist in this case. They help extend the knee to generate force to lift the barbell up. The other muscle involved is your hamstrings. Now, hamstrings are a big one. They are considered the antagonist in this case, and they help stabilize and control the knee when you're lowering the barbell down. As far as joint actions, we have the tibiofemoral, which we talked about earlier. It allows hinge-like motion. That is why it's considered a hinge joint. And then we have the patella, which improves leverage for quadriceps during extension. As I said earlier, deadlifts usually involve some heavy weight, so having that leverage is really important. As far as exercises and stretches to strengthen the muscles, we have the leg press, Romanian deadlifts, split squats, and step ups. Now, deadlifts by themselves are deadlifts alone are enough to strengthen almost every single bone in your body. Many athletes, when they're asked what one exercise that they would want to do for the rest of their life, they would answer with the deadlift, simply because it involves your whole body and it almost leaves out like no muscle at all. As far as stretches, we have the lying quad stretch, the frog stretch, standing forward fold, and the seated hamstring stretch. Now, these almost all involve your lower body. So your seated hamstring stretch is when you are completely laying on the ground and one leg out, and then the other leg you'd have close, like almost folded, and you would want to push your foot down as much as you can while stretching your hamstrings out. Now, stretching and strengthening the muscles are really important because they help you perform in sports better. Now, here is an example of one of the exercises that I mentioned earlier, the Romanian deadlift, which is very similar to the deadlift, except it involves different muscles this time and it targets different muscle groups.
Do you feel stress in your low back when doing an RDL? Let's talk about it. The RDL, or Romanian deadlift, works the hamstrings and glutes dynamically to move the hip, while your core muscles of your trunk work isometrically to stabilize the spine. When performing, think of your hips as a hinge joint. No motion should occur in the trunk. If core stability is not sufficient, the spine will move excessively, leading to disproportionately more load placed on the low back. If this is you, try the sandwich drill. Clasp your hands around your stomach and push in. Take a breath in a way that expands your trunk laterally and pushes your hands away. Then, stiffen your core like you're about to get punched. This is more optimal for lifting than breathing with your chest. Once you master this lateral breath and brace, see if you can perform it and then maintain your core stiffness as you hinge. As you get this down, pick up a barbell and repeat. The better your breathing and bracing, the more optimal your hinge will move and load will be handled by your body, meaning you'll feel this exercise in the right areas.
As we saw there, the main muscle targeted in this exercise is your hamstrings. Now, hamstrings are just important as any other muscles are, but I feel like in a deadlift, the primary muscle on the leg that is targeted is your quads. So performing a Romanian deadlift every once in a while is also really important to strengthen out your hamstrings as well. Moving on, we have a video of performing a split squat.
The Bulgarian split squats is an excellent. Bulgarian split squats is an excellent unilateral movement that helps with strength, stabilization, and imbalances. It primarily works the quadriceps and gluteal muscles, but will also include the hamstrings and core. Place an elevated platform onto the ground at a height that is comfortable, or use a bench if needed. Elevate one foot onto the platform or bench and step your other foot away from the bench or platform. The distance of your foot that is placed onto the ground will differ from person to person, so play with the placement until you reach a comfortable position. Keep a vertical torso as you flex in the hip and knee, squatting down until your thigh is parallel with the ground. Extend in your hip and knee joint to squat upwards until you reach the starting position. Feel free to add weight to this exercise by holding a pair of dumbbells.
As we saw right there, it is a little bit more complex than deadlifts, but it strengthens out your lower body muscles, like almost all the muscles in your legs, which is really important if you're trying to improve your weight in deadlifts. In the next slide, we have an example of the frog stretch and how it is done.
What's up guys, Dr. K here from Prime Performance Chiropractic. In today's video, I'm going to be going over a simple yoga pose that could help with low back pain, low back stiffness, hip pain, hip stiffness, hip mobility. So make sure you stick around for this one. But before we get into the video, make sure you pause and read the disclaimer on the screen. For the frog pose, we're going to start on our hands and knees. From here, you want to open up the knees as wide as flexibility allows. Make sure you have your toes pointing out. Keep the feet slightly wider than the knees. Then you want to come down on the forearms. You should already start to feel a slight stretch in the inner thighs. To deepen the stretch, you could sit back towards the heels, which is going to make the stretch a little deeper in the inner thighs. You want to hold this for about 15 to 20 seconds while you breathe, and then you want to release. As always, make sure you repeat this stretch 3 to 5 times. If there is any pain, stop.
As we saw right there, that was the frog stretch, which is really important to be using after deadlifts to release all the tension from, like the doctor said, your lower back, your hips, your hamstrings, and it helps you get into a recovery mode after your workout. In the next slide, we have the seated hamstring stretch. Now, the seated hamstring stretch could be on a chair or could be on the ground, depending on what you're comfortable with.
Stretch that you can do in a chair. I'm going to ask Sarah to straighten out one leg, put her heel down, and try to keep this knee as straight as possible. And then go ahead and bend, reach towards those toes. We're not trying to get to the toes. If you can get there, you have some great flexibility. But I want you to feel a stretch in the back of the leg, possibly behind the knee. And you may even feel this up in the lower back area. Just like most stretches, we want to hold this for 30 to 45 seconds. Go into it nice and slowly, come out of it nice and slowly. Make sure we work on both sides as well.
As you saw right there, the person performing this stretch was on a chair, but you are also you're able to perform this stretch on the ground as well. I personally prefer it on the ground simply because I can control my body more. This was the end for my presentation. Thank you all for listening and have a safe workout. Remember, do not ego lift, use controlled weight, and when it comes to deadlifting, using a weight that you're comfortable with is extremely important to prevent injuries